tell us how you happened to pick the Navy as opposed to the Army or any other military service?
Well, because we were here in Gettysburg, and the Navy had a recruiting officer here, and we discussed it with him, and we went down to York. That's where the Navy had a recruiting office. It was in York.
How did you get from here to York? That's a long drive.
28, 30 miles.
Okay. One of you had a car?
Yeah. I always had cars.
Okay.
Because my dad had garages.
Okay.
So I usually picked up something on the car there, and we would go to where we had to go. Yeah.
Whose idea was it?
We planned night after night at either one's home and planned on what we should do, how we should go about it, and how we should handle it.
How many of you were involved in this scheme?
Just the three of us.
3 boys.
Yeah.
And how old were you?
18. We just kept having our secret meetings.
So did your parents know anything about this enlistment project?
No.
So what did your parents think when they found out?
Well, my dad just was like a rocket going in the air. He was very upset.
I'll bet.
Then,
how about your mother?
Well, my mother, she was always kind to us. She said, well, are you really sure that is what you wanted to do? I said, Mother, we've been talking this over for the last year or 6 months. So when we went to enlist, and we expected to be together all the time. Well, none of us served in the service together. We got split apart, and they said when I came home from boot camp, they said, see what you got yourself into? Where are your buddies at?
Well, let me ask you now, in retrospect, are you glad you did pick the Navy?
Yes, I am. I enjoyed the Navy. And in fact, with the Navy, one thing, when you got in there, they taught you discipline. And the first officer I had in the Navy is the one that really gave me a father's talk. Do what you're told to do, and don't listen to your buddies, because a lot of these fellas think they knew all the angles, they know what to do, and take your listening from the officer. But if you don't, you're going to wind up in a lot of trouble. Now just listen to me, and you'll be all right. And I thought, boy, he talked better to me than my father. So I stuck to gunnery school. So then I got transferred down to Little Creek, Virginia.
So they assigned you to LST 864.
That was my first landing ship yet.
What is an LST?
Landing ship is amphibious. It's an amphibious ship, and it's used to haul troops in. You run in and you run it up on a beach, and then this bow here drops down, and this is a ship that carries all the heavy equipment for landing.
So it can have jeeps and ambulances and tanks as well as people.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So you were in the Pacific the whole time, those 2 years? You went back and forth on the LST throughout the Pacific?
Yeah. And we'd go up, make so many islands, drop troops, come back to another island, pick up troops, take them up to another location. And that's what we did. Just short trips, but we got bombed, we got shot at, but we never got hit.
You were a lucky man.
We were very lucky, yeah. And but
do you recall where you were when you learned about the end of the war, the dropping of the bombs?
We were up in, we went into Japan. We snuck through their gates. Our aircraft took pictures of when they opened their gates into the Japanese harbor. We'd sneak inside of them at night. We got in 2 or 3 different times at night to disturb them.
Okay. So, Jules, when the war ended, did you know about the bomb being dropped on Japan?
Oh, we were over there when they dropped it.
Did you see anything or hear anything? No, you were too far away.
No, we didn't get any problems from it.
Okay.
One of the boys on our ship was from Chicago. He was an artist with painting. So they called that the Lady Luck. They painted us above the fly bridge, a picture of Lady Luck carrying a ship. And he got up there and painted it. I don't know how many days it took him.
Wow. And here she is, the Lady Luck herself. She was designed by crew member Byron Francis O'Brien when members of the crew decided that they wanted to have a logo instead of just a number for their ship. We also owe a special debt of gratitude to Mickey J. Martin, known as Mike Martin, who put together a book to save the memories. It's called The Lady Luck Story of the USS LST 864. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for saving the photos and the stories.
We'd float at night for miles a lot of times just to see if we could pick up some of their subs in the water. And they would. And then they'd take one of our escort ships and track it till they got us a place where they thought they were safe. And then they would go after them and sink it.
How many escorts did you have for your ship?
We'd only have about 3, and there'd be about 12 or 14 ships with us. Towards.
So you had to protect yourselves as well as having them for service.
Yeah, we did.
So here's a picture of your gun crew. What amazes me is how few people there are to protect that enormous ship and its important cargo. You clearly had your work cut out for you. Now, when the war ended, how long did it take before you were able to come home?
Actually, when we came back from Japan we came into San Francisco. Okay. And then they flew us all on planes that they could load.
Interesting. So you flew home. You didn't have to take the train all the way across the country.
Oh, no. We flew from Hawaii to direct. That's why we got home so fast.
So from the time that you left to go to the Pacific was 2 years, you hadn't seen anybody from home. Did you write letters back home?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We were mailing all the time.
Okay. So you kept in touch that way.
Yes, ma'am.
You were discharged Bainbridge, Maryland, January 26th, a month after Christmas, 1946. So would you recommend the Navy to somebody today?
Oh my, yeah. Oh heavens, yes. I got a couple of guys in the Navy now, and of course every time they come home, they make a notion of finding me when they come home and telling me where they've been. And I told them the same story that officer told me, do what you're told to do. Don't go out and get your bowels up in a uproar and get disgusted and curse and so forth. That won't get you anywhere. Yeah, when I came up, I was a second-class petty officer. And that's pretty fast for that many years.
For a young boy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jules, for sharing your story of World War II service. It's interesting to note how your naval career actually parallels the story of the Lady Luck itself. While you were in training in 1944, the ship was under construction in Indiana. Then, when the ship was launched in the fall of 1944, it sailed down the Mississippi River and then out to sea, picking up its first crew, namely you and 100 men. You and your crew sailed on to the Pacific, and you stayed with the Lady Luck until the war ended. After you completed your service and returned home, the ship got its second and final crew, who would serve in China for 2 years, and then the ship was decommissioned in 1947 and sold. We thank both of you for your service.